Diagnostic assessment of L2 academic writing product, process, and self-regulation strategy use, with a comparative dimension. Diagnostic language assessment emphasizes identifying weaknesses, problems, and inadequacies in learners' performance profiles to enable more efficient, learning-centered, and problem-driven instruction. Most existing DLA studies on L2 writing only analyzed short argumentative essays written in test-like timed conditions, but not authentic academic papers produced outside the classroom over an extended period. They were also restricted to profiling problems observed in the writing products without tracking potential sources of problems related to the writing process. Understanding the links among written products, processes, and strategies is essential for purposeful instructions following diagnostic assessment. In light of the above gaps in the literature, Dr. Qin Xia and Ms. Yuqi Lei conducted a detailed analysis of students' term papers written for an academic course and in-depth interviews to explore the connections among writing products, processes, and self-regulatory strategy use in order to have a more comprehensive diagnostic assessment of first-year undergraduates' academic writing in English. Their research answered 3 questions. 2 of them are: what are the students' main difficulties during the writing process? What strategies do they adopt to overcome the difficulties and regulate their writing processes? The study is part of a larger research project, which adopted an exploratory sequential design to collect both quantitative and qualitative data. The quantitative part of the research consists of a corpus of 339 writing samples of first-year undergraduates' term papers submitted to a general education course. A 42 descriptor checklist was used to assess these samples on 7 writing skills. In the qualitative phase, individual interviews with 17 students were conducted to identify their difficulties and self-regulatory strategies. In addition, the study compared 2 subgroups of Chinese students studying in Hong Kong. They were students coming from the mainland and those who were locally born and bred. Regarding the difficulties students encountered, the 2 groups of students reported similar difficulties, and their difficulties were located in the stages of researching, planning, and formulating. An overwhelming majority of students found researching the topic of writing to be the most challenging and time-consuming aspect. However, the majority of reported difficulties were located in the formulating stage and associated with vocabulary use, grammar, content, organization and coherence, and source integration. Among these areas of problem, vocabulary seems to be the most common. All students reported experiencing difficulties in identifying and using formal, task-related vocabulary to express themselves. Grammar was also reported to be a common problem. 94% of students needed help in writing grammatically when they wanted to express subtlety or multilayered meanings. The next problematic area is content. 24% of students mentioned having problems with content. Surprisingly, only 2 students mentioned integrating sources into their writing to be challenging. Facing those challenges, students reported using 3 types of strategies. The first type of strategy was associated with the control of goals. When facing challenges that they feel unable to resolve, students choose to lower their goals to prioritize things they consider to be more important, such as prioritizing content and logic rather than language. The second type was strategies associated with control of resources, such as time, effort, and social support. The research identified 2 types of students. One type can be called deliberate deadline fighters. They reported that they economized time and effort to increase task concentration. They spent less time on writing, and usually had no time for revision. The other type can be called conscientious writers, who started earlier, made plans, edited drafts, self-regulated, and motivated. Both types of students seek help. The third group of strategies can be put under the control of cognition, which is essential to reducing the cognitive demand of the writing task to make it easier. For instance, students used L1 to plan their writing and sort out its logics. Additionally, these strategies could be considered in terms of whether it makes the writers do more or do less. Based on the above insights, the researchers developed the PDC model to conceptualize the relations among in the written product, the difficulties in the process, and the control strategies adopted. Specifically, the 7 domains concerning the written product were organized in 3 categories of ideas, language, and academic literacy. The reported difficulties were mapped along key stages of the writing process. For instance, D1 to 3 were associated with idea formulation. Altogether, 6 major difficulties were identified for the 3 stages of writing. The difficulties are highlighted in different shades, and the darker shades indicate they are more difficult. In terms of control strategies, 3 groups of control strategies were commonly adopted. Based on their findings, the researchers identified 15 conceptual links among the 3. For instance, task fulfillment and organization coherence and cohesion, the 2 domains concerning ideas, were linked with perceived difficulties in the stages of researching, planning, and formulating. To cope with these difficulties, students reported investing more, or less, time in researching and planning and seeking instructors' help. Some used their L1 to help organize ideas from sources or form one's stance and views. These strategies seem to be effective in improving their performance because, despite reporting the research and planning stages to be the most challenging, students could achieve a passing level of performance in task fulfillment and organization coherence and cohesion. Interestingly, only one strategy was associated with source use. Since it is a reductive strategy, it doesn't seem to contribute to performance, and unsurprisingly academic source use remains the most problematic aspect of students' academic writing.